For 634 days, 28 men were trapped in the deadliest place on Earth. They watched their ship destroyed by ice, drifted for months on a frozen sea, sailed a lifeboat through hurricanes. By every rule of survival, every single one of them should have died out there. But one man refused to lose them. This is how he brought them home. His name was Ernest Shackleton. By 1914, he was already famous throughout the British Empire, a polar explorer who had come within 97 miles of the South Pole and turned back to save his men from starvation. But someone else got there first. In 1911, the Norwegian Roald Amundsen reached the pole. A month later, the British hero Robert Scott reached it too, and died on the way back with all 4 of his men. The pole was taken. The age of polar heroes seemed to be ending. But Shackleton found one final prize still unclaimed. One goal that no human being had ever accomplished. He would cross the entire continent of Antarctica on foot, 1,800 miles across the coldest desert on Earth. He called it the Imperial Trans-Antarctic Expedition. To find his men, he placed an advertisement in London. The story goes that it read, "Men wanted for hazardous journey, low wages, bitter cold, long months of complete darkness, constant danger, safe return, doubtful, honor and recognition in case of success." 5,000 men applied. He chose 27. Among them, Frank Worsley, a New Zealand sea captain, who would prove one of the greatest navigators who ever lived. Tom Crean, an Irish sailor with more Antarctic experience than any man alive. Frank Wild, his second-in-command and closest friend, and Harry McNish, Chippy, a stubborn Scottish carpenter whose hands would soon save all their lives. Their ship was called Endurance. On August 8th, 1914, just days after Britain entered World War I, she sailed for Antarctica. The plan was simple: land on the coast, walk across the continent, meet a support ship on the other side. They never even made it to the coast. By January 1915, the Endurance was pushing through the Weddell Sea, a body of water so choked with pack ice that Shackleton's own captain had warned him against it. Then the temperature dropped. The sea froze around them. The ship was trapped. Weeks passed. The ice would not release them. Shackleton did what few captains could. He refused to let despair take his crew. They played football on the ice, held sing-alongs. He kept them working, kept them laughing, kept them alive. But he knew what was coming. On October 27th, 1915, after 9 months trapped in the ice, the pressure became too much. The Endurance began to die. Timbers cracked like gunshots. The hull twisted and screamed. Water flooded the lower decks. Shackleton ordered the men off the ship, onto the ice, with everything they could save. For 3 weeks, the Endurance held on. Then, on November 21st, they watched her disappear beneath the ice. The ship that was supposed to carry them home. Shackleton wrote a single word in his journal: lost. Then he turned to his men and said, "Ship and stores have gone, so now we'll go home."
Stay close, keep watch.
They had no ship, no radio, no way to signal the outside world, and they were 1,200 miles from the nearest inhabited land. Their only assets, 3 small lifeboats they had dragged off the Endurance, some sledges, and dwindling supplies. Shackleton's plan was to walk across the ice to open water. It failed within days. The ice was too broken. the going too slow. They set up camp on a large floe and waited. They waited for months, living in tents on ice that could crack open at any moment, killing seals and penguins for food, watching their supplies dwindle. The floe was drifting north, slowly, unpredictably. Shackleton did the math. If the ice broke apart in the right place, they might launch the boats toward Elephant Island, a barren, uninhabited rock 100 miles away. If the ice broke apart in the wrong place, they would drown. They drifted for 5 months. On April 9th, 1916, the floe finally split beneath them. Shackleton gave the order, launch the boats. What followed was 7 days of hell. 3 open wooden boats in the Southern Ocean, waves 40 feet high, killer whales breaching between them, sea spray freezing into ice on their clothes, on their faces, on their beards. They rowed and rowed. Men hallucinated, their tongues swelled from thirst, surrounded by an ocean of undrinkable water. Some began to give up. Shackleton did not. He passed his own biscuits to weaker men. He stood at the tiller for hours in the freezing wind, refusing to sleep. He kept the 3 boats together through storms that should have scattered them into oblivion. On April 15th, 1916, they landed on Elephant Island. For the first time in 497 days, 28 men stood on solid ground. And nobody in the world had any idea they were still alive. Elephant Island was a dead end, a jagged, ice-covered rock, uninhabited, off every shipping route, with no possibility of rescue. If they stayed, they would die there, slowly, one by one. Shackleton made the decision that made him legend. He would take one of the lifeboats, the James Caird, just 22 feet long, and sail it 800 miles across the most violent ocean on Earth to South Georgia, the nearest inhabited land. Harry McNish, the Scottish carpenter, went to work. He raised the sides of the tiny boat. He improvised a deck from canvas and packing crates. He caulked the seams with oil paint and seal blood. He made a 22-foot open boat into something that might, just might, survive the Southern Ocean. Shackleton picked 5 men to go with him. Worsley, the navigator, Crean the sailor, McNish the carpenter, and 2 others. He left Frank Wild in command of the 22 men staying on Elephant Island. On April 24th, 1916, the James Caird pushed off into the sea. The Southern Ocean is where the world's oceans collide, with nothing to slow them down. Waves circle Antarctica, growing bigger and bigger until they become mountains of water. For 16 days, 6 men in a 22-foot boat sailed through hell. Freezing spray coated every surface in a foot of ice. They had to hack it off with axes to keep from capsizing. They took turns bailing water, 4 hours on, 4 hours off. There was no dry clothing, there was no sleep. Worsley navigated by the sun when he could see it, which was almost never. 4 sightings in 16 days. If any of them were wrong, they would miss South Georgia and be blown into the empty Atlantic, where they would die. They saw a wall of white on the horizon. Shackleton thought it was a cloud line clearing. It was a wave, bigger than any he had ever seen. It slammed the boat, half filled it with water, but somehow they did not sink. On May 8th, 1916, they saw land. Worsley's 4 sightings had brought them to within a few miles of their target. One of the greatest feats of navigation in history. But their trial wasn't over. A hurricane pinned them at sea for 2 more days, driving them onto the rocks. When they finally landed, it was on the wrong side of the island. The whaling station, the only human settlement, was on the far side, across a mountain range that no one had ever crossed. Shackleton, Worsley, and Crean would have to walk over it. The mountains of South Georgia are unmapped, ice-covered, split by crevasses. Even today, they defeat trained mountaineers with modern equipment. The 3 men had none of that. Their boots were falling apart. McNish drove screws from the boat into their soles for grip. They had no sleeping bags, no tent, no map. 50 feet of rope and axe in each other. They walked for 36 hours without stopping. At one point, trapped on a freezing ridge at nightfall, Shackleton made a decision that could have killed all 3 of them. He coiled their rope. He sat on it. He told the other 2 to sit behind him, and they slid down an unknown slope into the darkness. They lived. On May 20th, 1916, 3 ghosts staggered into the whaling station at Stromness. The station manager did not recognize them. He asked them who they were. Shackleton simply said, "My name is Shackleton." The men on Elephant Island were still alive. Under Frank Wild's command, they had survived 4 months on penguin meat, under 2 overturned lifeboats, sheltered from Antarctic storms by nothing but wood and canvas. Every day, Wild had ordered them to pack their gear, saying, "The boss may come today." Shackleton tried 3 times to reach them. Ice blocked him. Storms turned him back. Each time he set out again. On August 30th, 1916, on his 4th attempt, Shackleton finally broke through the ice to Elephant Island. He stood at the bow of the rescue ship, counting figures on the beach. 22. All 22. Every single man alive. The Imperial Trans-Antarctic Expedition never crossed a single mile of Antarctica. By every measure, Shackleton's mission had failed. But he had done something no leader in the history of exploration had ever done. Trapped for 634 days in the deadliest environment on Earth. 28 men, not one lost. His name was Ernest Shackleton.
If you found his story worth knowing, subscribe. We tell one true story like this every week.